So, good morning, everyone. My name is Gurudeep Ramakrishna, and welcome to the second of a series of webinars on social hiring, brought to you by Global Talent Metrics in partnership with People Matters. Today's webinar is a sequel on the webinar that focused on strategic context in the direction of social hiring and what HR leaders should know about this revolutionary phenomenon. This webinar is focused on what talent acquisition managers and recruiters need to know to provide a competitive edge to their team or themselves. Before we start this webinar, I'd like to ask people to please post their questions on the chat box available to the right of their screen. It's a Q&A box, and we will take these questions towards the end of the webinar. Let me now introduce our speaker for today. Ranjan Sinha is the chairman of Summit HR India. He is a talent visionary. He's been in the HR space for the last 2 decades. We also have with us K. Srinivas Rao, or Srini, as he's called. He's a chief strategist and partner at The Strategist. Over to you, Ranjan.
Thank you. Thank you, Guru. Srini, it's a pleasure to do this presentation with you. And as Guru had mentioned, this is the second of a series of webinars on social hiring, and the last one was focused much more on what I would call at the 60,000 feet level to look at social media, social hiring at a more strategic perspective. This one is focused on either corporate recruiters or recruiters who are working for a recruitment agency, or managers and leaders who are specifically focused on talent acquisition and recruitment. And I would say this is a webinar that's at about a 15,000 feet level, and the one that is a sequel to this, which I think is towards the end of November, is almost like a workshop, which is how do you actually implement an enterprise-wide social hiring platform, strategy, etc. So, and Srini and I will, in an interactive fashion, go through this presentation. So as the webinar title is, what are the 5 things as a recruiter, as a talent acquisition manager, Srini and I believe people should know. And the first one is social hiring will become a dominant way that people will find, companies will find people, you will find people, and vice versa. People will find jobs. And this is just an evolution over the last 15 years. Just about in 1995, just around the time the web came. Prior to that, the way people used to find jobs or companies used to find people was very different. It was advertising in newspapers. Recruiters had a Rolodex, mostly phone-based, fax-based. From 1995 till about 2005, 2006, Internet has changed that, and job boards and Internet and emails became more prevalent. And I think we are going to experience the next phase of how recruitment, hiring, and people and companies coming together will happen.
Yep.
Facebook will... Go ahead, Srini. Sorry.
Yeah. As just picking up from where Ranjan paused, the face of the recruitment will definitely change, and it is changing in a much faster fashion than what we had witnessed in the last decade of 5 years. And the fact of the matter is the web, or the traditional understanding of web, has more to do with understanding the job portals and using job portals for identifying the resumes and those things. today's evolution has moved to the fact that where you have the Facebook appearing as the largest and the most influential source on the recruitment. And one learning that at least I personally believe that every one of us will go through, and which Ranjan would take us in great detail, would be to break the myth that LinkedIn is far more important than Facebook. Generally, that has been the popular belief, but as we go through the presentation, we'll realize through Ranjan's experience and his expertise how Facebook is becoming the dominant social media platform for recruitment.
The next is a good technology is key. And if you are looking at this point, purely to go into LinkedIn, do a few searches, or normally today even, a lot of recruiters, when they speak to a candidate, they try to get a few referrals. And that is really a way of social hiring. But ultimately, any good talent acquisition organization or a recruiter needs to invest in ideally the best social hiring application. I'll talk a little bit more about what is a social hiring application, and it will give you an edge because the amount of information that is now available about people, about connections, is exponentially grown. Now, just if you rewind back about 15, 20 years, and if an average recruiter had 200, 300 resumes in their Rolodex, that was a large practice. With job boards, fundamentally the access to the talent became fairly commoditized. And by that what I mean, and I think we all experience this today, every recruitment company, every corporation has access to the same set of resumes that is on Monster, Naukri, Times Job, or any other job. And I know of many corporations that have rules that said, look, don't send me the same profile if it's on the job board. So fundamentally, there is a need for a good technology that can take everything that's on the social media and translate that into a meaningful, efficient way for a recruiter to do their business, whether it's in an agency or as a corporate recruiter.
Moving to the next point, which we are emphasizing, is empowering the employees and the alumni. What we witness of late is the tendency of the alumni to be far more outspoken about their past organization on the social networking sites. So it became paramountly very important for the recruiters and the HR professionals to ensure that the alumni act as a brand ambassador for us, rather than they going back and negating whatever good work has been done. Needless to say, all organization goes through good phases and bad phases, and that is something which many of us can't avoid. But ensuring that the exit process and the way we manage our alumni is becoming far more critical, because all the good work of a recruiter can just vanish in air. If somebody connects on a Facebook or LinkedIn and checks with this guy saying, yeah, I'm interested to go for this company, what would you advise since you've been there? And if that gentleman or lady just pass a negating comment, the whole effort would be down. It's also becoming important to go back and empower the employees, because it's been seen and experienced all through our years that birds of same feather flock together. So if we have a set of good employees and they are far widely connected on the social network zone, it's becoming easy to attract talent through them rather than going through the traditional methods, as Ranjan rightly pointed out, either posting our jobs in newspapers or portals. It's not making that much impact. Vis-a-vis a friend buzzing on his social network wall saying, we have some exciting jobs, would you be interested?
The next piece that I think we all should be very aware of is social media is going and is providing today a very high degree of what I call mutual transparency, which means today a candidate has a huge amount of information about your hiring practice, about your hiring methodology, and then going all the way into your salary structure, into the culture, almost right down to the manager they will be working with. So there's a huge amount of transparency that is available to a candidate, and vice versa. Today, the way we reference check is very different than we used to do maybe even 5 years ago. 5 years ago, we were pretty much limited by the few references a candidate gave, and I don't know how many of you have come across a reference that ever said something negative about someone. Today, that has changed. Today, I know all our recruiters and many of the clients for whom we have done work with are able to use the social media to get to references and get a lot more transparency into the candidate. And that gets back to the whole other point that Srini was mentioning, that beyond just the information, you will have to manage your social brand, and it extends into how does a recruiter manage their own network. And we are going to probably deep dive a lot more into how to build a network and manage a network in the workshop webinar, which is end of November. But nonetheless, as recruiters and talent acquisition leaders, that it is critical how that entire network and the brand is managed, because that network is effectively the intellectual property of the company. It's a very core asset. So those are really the 5 key things that will impact how effectively an organization or a recruiter is able to design and implement, execute, and leverage social hiring. So let me deep dive a little bit about social hiring will become the dominant way companies will find people and people will find jobs. And I think the era that, what happens today is as recruiters and companies, we post jobs on a job board, and we hope some people respond to it, or we find some information and we call. That process has its significant limitations, as we all know. In fact, an average candidate today, by the moment they post their profile, ends up getting somewhere on an average of about 15 to 16 phone calls. And if you aren't one of the top 1, 2, or 3 to call, you're probably not. Most of us experience, or our recruiters tell us, well, I have left so many messages. The reason those messages are not being responded to because the candidate is already down the path with some company or some agency in terms of their hiring process. So, and social hiring even today, if you consider the amount of leads a recruiter today generates by talking to other candidates, which is really a way of social hiring. You're trying to generate referrals. If you look at companies, there are quite a large set of companies that today hire anywhere from 20 to as much as 50% of their total hires come through their employee referral program, which is nothing but leveraging the social network of your employees to hire people. So social hiring is a fairly dominant part. It's just how it was being done until over the last few years is going to rapidly change, primarily because of the advent of technology. And social media is definitely changing the game, and it's just in terms of sheer numbers. If you look at today where Facebook is, and if you go back to 2007 compared to, this is data for one of the largest job boards in India. They had about 10 million profiles in 2007. They have a little bit north of about 25 million profiles today. In the same time frame, Facebook has about 30 million plus profiles in the prime hiring age. And the fact that you have that amount of number of people on Facebook compared to what you have now on an average job board. If you are not taking advantage of it, you are missing a large chunk of the prime hiring population. And I'll actually operationalize that specifically for something we did for a large semiconductor company that was looking to hire semiconductor engineers. And we basically created a set of what is called cluster companies or target companies. So they came to us and said, here are the 7 companies that we want to hire people from. And when we went to the job boards, we basically had 427 profiles that worked for these companies, or they had some connection to these companies. And compared to that, using one of the social hiring applications, when we went into and looked for the number of profiles, so that actually were currently employed by these companies, the number was literally almost 4 or 5 times larger. And the fact is, if you post your job on one of the job boards, you'll have about 430, 440 people look at the job. Compared to that, you today have mechanisms where you can actually post your job on a Facebook-based application, and you will have close to 2,500 people, or you can target these 2,542 people specifically for your jobs. So, and Srini's organization has done intense amount, deep research on how, at a very behavioral level, what I call the prime hiring age, working age 18 to 35, is today using Facebook. So, Srini, please go ahead.
Yeah. There are 2 things that we've realized during our research. One is more at a philosophical level, in the sense that India being a collective society as it is, we generally are shy sharing our things on face-to-face. So if I have done a great work, I've been born and brought up in an era where I've been told, not to praise yourself, and I'm very defensive. So what has Facebook and the other social media has done is, it's given me a platform to share those things without kind of boasting myself. So I go up and I start sharing all about what I have done and what I'm planning to do, and then there are friends of mine who get connected and who talk about it, and they again have a way to praise me and say, Srini, that's a great job, wow, you're on the right track, those kind of things. So suddenly, if you look at the way the Facebook has caught up, one of the reasons is why, because people have found it as a avenue to share their aspirations, their frustrations, which we generally as Indians are very hesitant when we have to do face-to-face. The second thing that we realized we did a recent study where we had 1,000 plus respondents in the age group of 18 to 25, predominantly on Gen Y, to check how Gen Y is looking at some of these things. And there were 3 things that came up to us which was very important, and as talent acquisition experts that we are, is becoming very critical for us. Number 1 was Gen Y said the best source to test or to rely on the information is internet. So gone are the days when people would go back and check with their families and parents as to what they're doing is right or wrong. Today's generation believes internet is the best source, so as soon as they get an offer letter, the first thing that they type on the web is to check what is being said about this organization. They go back to their Facebooks and LinkedIn's networks and they check as to, I've got an offer from this company, what should I be doing? Does it make sense or no? So internet and social media big time has become an area of validating and revalidating their thoughts. The second thing that we realized during our study was where Gen Y has come back and clearly stated that they look and they join an organization, and when they join an organization, the relationship mode is more like living in. So no more is the thought wherein when I used to take up a job in our generation, we used to believe it's like a marriage, that I'm wedded to this company, I'm going to stay in this company irrespective of the fact whether things are good or bad. Today's generation is going back and looking at it as a living in relationship, so they plug in and plug out very easily. So it's becoming critical to ensure that not only we get this generation plug in, but we need to stay them in, because plugging out is very easy for them. They do not have any emotional bonds with the organization per se. The last point which we realized during this study was the biggest pull for picking up a job, either the first job or during transit, is brand. Today's generation is heavily influenced by brand. They would like to know how is their company recognized, do people recognize their company, how it is perceived. And again, their social network becomes a huge pull for them. They like to see what is happening in this organization. So when I go back and proudly say that I work for the next organization, my friends would like to go and check out what is this X organization all about on Facebook and other networks. And if that profile is not very exciting and dull, then they will come back and tell me what sad company you're working for. So however good I am inside the organization, but if my organization is not perceived outside good, I will also go back and say goodbye to that organization. So these are some of the findings that came out, which are becoming very critical for us as talent acquisition experts to understand why this social media is just not a fad and will not go away and will still remain in alive, and how it is going to influence the way we work.
And as Srini was mentioning, it's people are already, and I've taken some examples of what I would call career job-related sites that are on Facebook. And I've just taken some examples, and I'm not sure if you can read or not, but there is, if you're looking at this Facebook site, it's a group called Bangalore Jobs, where people are already asking each other, do you have a job? And then they get specifically saying, is this kind of a testing a better job, or the other kind of testing is a better job? Someone on the other slide is saying, I have an interview from this company. Can anyone tell me what they will ask in the interview? So this goes back to the whole issue of transparency, how much information is already available, or how much people are looking at their network, their social network, for information about jobs or how to take an interview. And social hiring today, when I say it is changing and it will become dominant, it is not something that it is today. I think today, if you include employee referral, and what an average recruiter today does is get referrals from candidates, if you club that together, it already today probably accounts for more than or equal to the amount of hires an average company gets through job boards or their own corporate websites. Those are really the three big areas. And what I do see happening is, over time, given the cost associated with driving traffic to your website, cost associated with getting your share of candidates of the job board, people will start using social media. And really what is going to bring that and accelerate that transition is the kind of technologies that are now coming into existence that run on top of social media platforms. And before we get into that, I just want to spend one slide really talking about some more specifics about Facebook. And LinkedIn today is clearly a powerful tool, and Srini will speak a little bit more about it. However, if you look at number one, in terms of the sheer amount of candidates or people who are on LinkedIn versus Facebook in India, it is really almost 4 times more. And even if you strip out the people between the age of 14 to 17, which is really not relevant for hiring, you are still looking at about 30 to 35 million people compared to about 10 million people on LinkedIn. And today I don't think the choice is should I be using LinkedIn or should I be using or should I be using Facebook? I think Facebook today is still the number of actual leads that come through Facebook. I am pretty sure is relatively small compared to LinkedIn. And one of the big reasons is that LinkedIn is designed to be a platform to connect professionally with people. Facebook is really a very open platform, and new applications are being built on top of Facebook. LinkedIn effectively has been in the market much longer, but when you look at the scale of profiles, today it's really the question is, how do I use Facebook along with LinkedIn? Because not only do they have 4 times more profiles, so your choice is, do I miss out on those 30 million or 20 million extra profiles to reach out? And as I shared in a previous slide, the ability to target on Facebook is significant. And compared to the amount of time people who haven't posted their resume, who go to a job board, is almost negligible. Compared to that, those 2,000 plus people in those companies probably log into Facebook almost every day, about half of them. On an average, people spend about 20 minutes on Facebook. And average person is about 110 friends on Facebook, and if you even discount it for friends and for family, etc., there are quite a few folks who have friends from their professional work on Facebook. And finally, Facebook is relatively free. And then I think we all know this. I have recruiters in my own organization. We work with companies for whom we build their social hiring platforms. LinkedIn is an expensive platform. You have to pay a monthly login for every recruiter. In fact, if you contact, let's say you find your second or third level of contact, you will have to pay for in-mail. Compared to that, Facebook is free. So the choice really today isn't about should I use LinkedIn or should I use Facebook. I think given how competitive the market is, to give ourselves an edge, we have to figure out how do we use both and look at technologies that actually allow us to leverage both. Srini, did you want to add something here?
Just one point. Ranjan, as rightly highlighted, it is no more a question of either or between these two important platforms. What is evident is we need to use both effectively. Both have their superior advantages. For example, when we look at the crowd of 18 to 30, we would see them far more active on Facebook vis-a-vis LinkedIn. So as Ranjan rightly pointed out, probably I may be spending 20 minutes a day on Facebook and 20 minutes a week on LinkedIn, because I wouldn't have so much to update on LinkedIn every day. So once in a while I'll go there, I'll just go and see what is happening and what's not happening. But on Facebook I have so many things to do and so many things to be there. So if a talent acquisition expert has to get in touch with me, the chances of my email, which is on Facebook, will be far more active vis-a-vis on LinkedIn. At the same time, one realizes that as the age and profile of the candidate increases, and you find people who are 30 plus years experience, and you want to deep dive and understanding what is this candidate and what is his background, you will find some interesting details and notes on the LinkedIn, which you would have put in or which you can track through. And that would give us a greater insight in the candidate. So it's a question in terms of creating a pool. There is no substitute for Facebook, and LinkedIn cannot be used for creating a pool vis-a-vis. But LinkedIn can only help us to deep dive once we have shortlisted a few resources in which we want to work upon.
And Srini, that is a very good distinction. That if you are looking at getting a candidate flow, Facebook is clearly an open platform, and the amount of business applications and applications for talent supply chain that are being written is just enormous. And it goes back to the, in some way, Srini, does this mean some of the old recruitment hiring, where do they fit? And what the slide says, in some way, everything is the same and nothing is the same, primarily because even if you go back 15, 20 years, in my mind, those are some basic steps that every recruiter, every talent acquisition organization had to do. You had to attract people, you had to inform them, hopefully you had to inspire them to join your organization, you had to engage with them, and then you had to demonstrate a certain amount of respect for their time and effort the candidate has put with you, and do background check, etc., leading to hire. So in some way, that process has not changed. So what has changed is how those things are being done. And Srini, do you want to comment a little bit on?
Yeah, as you rightly said, the base core hasn't changed in terms of the process steps and the methodology that we've been adopting. What has technology done is technology has enabled this process, and the cycle has come down drastically. So typically, if I would go back and say previously, if I would have an interest in a career move and I'll go and identify a company, apply the interview process, then the ref checks, and my ref check of the company would take anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks. It has now crashed down to a week or two. So the moment I am walking out of the interview room, I am already updating on my social networking site here, and I liked it or I didn't like it. I have instances where candidates have walked out of the interview saying, this company sucks, my interview was such a farce. And the people who are sitting outside in the room trying to go for the interview have already started walking out, because they say the guys who are walking in are saying it is not happening. So suddenly what has happened is, as Ranjan rightly said, the whole piece of inspiring, engaging, if one looks at, it is no more we don't have so much of time to do that. The time cycles have shortened. People are becoming far more quicker in their decision making. People are getting influenced far more. Previously, even if I had somebody talking to me about a company saying it is not so great company, I would take the pain of talking to another two people. But today, with so much of reliance on internet, and I go back and believe whatever is there is up is right, if two people go back and bash the company, people will just decide to walk out. So what is the pain for the talent acquisition expert is the time cycle to recover from a disaster, or the time to get into a disaster has actually shortened. And that luxury of time has got disabled. So even the process remains the same, the time cycles have shortened a lot due to the technology that has come into place.
And so if you look at the earlier steps of attracting, and I'm going to spend some time on how has attracting candidate for an organization changed, and how do you basically capture candidate leads or generate candidate leads, and how that has evolved and changed with social hiring, and then informing the candidate or how candidates seek information about the company is evolving dramatically because of social media. And Srini, towards the end of the webinar, we'll talk a little bit more about the reference check, background check, and how engagement would be done. So let me share with you and I have redacted the name of the company. This is a fairly large insurance company in India. Now, this is their Facebook page. Now, as you can see, the candidates today, although they may find your job on a job board, they do want to come and find information about the company, ideally from a career site. Now, that to drive traffic to a career site, to maintain a career site, and to truly engage on a career site is very, very difficult. What Facebook does is it allows you to engage very actively with the potential candidate pool on your career site. So I want to give this example really as an example of perhaps what not to do, and I'll follow this with what Summit's Facebook page is. And one of the advantages of a Facebook page is it's relatively simple to create and manage, and you have the ability to use Facebook platform to drive traffic to this page. So today, even if you have a career website, a corporate site, however fancy it is, you have to invest a fair amount of effort and time and money to drive traffic to it. And it is very hard, almost impossible, to do it in a very targeted fashion because web doesn't give you that basic underlying platform capability that Facebook does. So here on this, a candidate that comes here can come in. There is a basic information. They can actually share with us what their experience has been with the company. And going back to Srini's point, we want to engage with the talent community. So rather than just going and saying things on Facebook pages, etc., we do give them an opportunity to come in. They can click on it, and there is a survey that basically they can fill, and we constantly monitor it, and just some marketing information. We do have a career tab here that when somebody clicks on it, they actually can, there is a keyword search available, and they can search for jobs. And one of the advantages of, and this is one of the social hiring applications that powers this Facebook page for Summit, the advantage is when people come to our regular corporate career website, they can apply. But here, we give the person the opportunity to refer. Sometimes if they want, the system actually, when somebody logs in, it will show them who are their connections in this particular company. So let's say if it is pick any company with Genpact, anybody coming to the website would be able to see who are their social people on their social network who are working at Genpact. They can decide to directly apply, or they can share the job with other folks on their social network. So this is a great way to what I call push marketing. So other people coming to your Facebook site are actually pushing your job out to people who may be relevant for your job. One of the key advantages of a career page on a Facebook is you have the ability, and if you're using the right social hiring application, you have the ability to target your audience to stay and drive them to your Facebook page. So here is an example of the ability to target. These are all, the company wants to target people who are in Bangalore, 21 years and older, and who work at Intel, Wipro, or HCL Technologies. There are 12,440 people that you can actually target, and for anywhere from 5 rupees to 12 rupees, and they are typically driven by per click, or for even a smaller fraction of a cost, almost for less than a rupee, you can just do pure impression-based targeting. So the fact that Facebook as a social media platform gives you the ability, and social hiring applications take advantage of that and make that into a practical business tool that you can use. To just give you a sense of with a social hiring application, you can actually find, connect, and hire from about 30 million users today. Now, I'll just give you some samples. There are about 1.35 million profiles between the age of 25 to 34 who have a college degree. Obviously, this number changes probably on an hourly basis. There are about 140,000 people you can target in Nagpur. And for one of our clients, they wanted to start hiring from secondary and tertiary markets. And one of the myths is that there aren't that many people on social media in the secondary, tertiary market, and that really is not accurate. In fact, an increasing number of people are now getting onto these platforms. Again, what I call the ability to target at a corporate level. If these are your competitive companies where you acquire talent from, you are able to very specifically target to those. Again, and I think Srini was mentioning this, I think a Facebook-based social hiring platform is immensely powerful for campus hiring. So there are about two months ago, there were about 200,000 students on Facebook in India who were going to be graduating in this coming year. And the ability to, by city, by interest, to target them, or by college. You can go ahead and say, I want to target people who are in the top 6, 7, 8 IITs, or the top 20 regional colleges. And that is something that a social hiring application running on Facebook does give you that ability. So what I want to get into the right technology, and the right technology does matter, because it ultimately, social media platform like Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, if you call it a platform, has immense amount of information, connections, capability. And unless there is a high-quality application that takes advantage of all this and allows you to use all that power and energy in a meaningful fashion, you can spend a lot of time on it. And that is where we have this new generation of applications that is going to transform and take social hiring to the next level. And these are basically social hiring applications. And social hiring application, as I mentioned, is basically business applications. They should be designed for an enterprise-wide, and they are optimized for referral and social network-based sourcing and hiring. And so a good social hiring application not only allows a recruiter to build their own network and go down their social network to reach candidates, but it should allow the employees to not only reach out to their immediate social network, but what we call reach out to their extended social network and allow candidate flow and high-quality candidate flow back to the organization. Here are some of the key features to look for. One is privacy, and focus groups are for focus groups, and Srini probably has information on this too. Individuals, when they are on a social media platform like Facebook, especially on Facebook, they want to be able to see an environment or a business application that gives them the ability to refer, get referred, talk about in a very private, secure fashion. People are not interested in jobs scrolling up their wall, or when a friend refers them, it just gets announced on their wall that somebody has referred them. So a good social hiring application needs to be very sensitive about privacy and all the communication that is happening, although it's happening using the underlying Facebook or Twitter information, it does not get broadcasted. The second is a good social hiring application should take the information that's already there on Facebook or Twitter. And Facebook has added a lot more features now where increasing amount of business and professional information is available. And a good social hiring application should be able to take that and use that intelligently to match people with jobs for the recruiter. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in some of the next few points in upcoming slides. The third part is community feedback. A good social hiring platform should have the ability to provide information about the job, should allow you to engage with the talent community, and should be able to attract candidates from a trusted talent community. And so a good application should be able to give a recruiter the ability to say, this is my most effective community that brings me candidate flow, versus everybody trying to be your friend and eventually, all you have is a bunch of people on your network. But a good application should be able to tell you, is this coming from a trusted person referring me versus somebody who's just referring me out of the blue. A good social hiring application should have a simple but a powerful back end, because ultimately as these leads are coming in, and as Srini had discussed in one of the previous slides, in some way everything has changed, but nothing has changed, because irrespective of how the leads come, now they are, instead of coming through faxes or coming through job boards, they'll be coming through social media or a social hiring platform. Recruiters still have to capture it, process it, make the phone call, talk to them, put the comments, capture the resume, all those. And a good social hiring application should be able to bring in a relevance of quality, because one of the things you will experience is once you turn a good social hiring application on, you are going to start getting swamped with profiles coming in. And especially if your employee referral, extended referral, and you are offering cash incentive for referrals, you will start getting a lot of candidate flow. And a good platform should be able to basically give the recruiter a sense of which is a high-quality candidate. And one of the applications that I am more familiar with does allow, when a recruiter uploads a job, you can put your cluster companies, the kind you saw in the previous slide, where you can put these 7 companies that I want to hire from. And the platform will go out on the network and pull out people that are your immediate friends or your friends' friends that belong to these organizations. And then it will look at, are they in the same town? Do they have similar job titles? So if a reference is coming from a software engineer about a software engineer, a platform should be able to say, yes, this is a better quality. So that is very important, because for a recruiter, time is money. And just getting more candidates is one. The other is for a technology to be able to say, these are your top possible 5 candidates. The next one, from an organizational point of view, is very, very important. And that is what I call network portability, which is ensuring that as people come and leave an organization, especially in the talent acquisition group and organization, that the effort that has been done by that person becomes really a corporate asset. It's a corporate intellectual property. It's important that that network is preserved and very, in a professional, seamless manner, migrated to the next recruiter or the next manager who takes in charge. And again, if a social hiring application does not have the capabilities built in and good processes to do that, what you will end up doing is, when your recruiter leaves, you basically will end up losing that entire network, and which would be it's a significant asset to the organization. So in my mind, those are some very key elements that one has to look at in a good social hiring application. Srini, anything you want to add, comment?
Just one thing, to just emphasize and elaborate, or to re-emphasize on what you said. From the branding and the sourcing perspective, one looks at, a person would only visit the company website if he has the intent of changing a job, or he's keen on you, or he's aware of you. So otherwise, he would never walk into your website and see your website. So basically what happens is, the passive candidates who are not actively looking out may never come to know that there is a vacancy existing with you, or there is an opportunity working with you. But when we use a platform like Facebook, as you rightly pointed out, somewhere you are able to go back and make impressions on those passive candidates also. So if there's somebody who's not really looking out, but suddenly he may get curious, thinking, what is this? As for example, I always wanted to try out doing sales in a African continent, because I thought that was a challenge. and now here I see a position like that coming up. So even though I may not be very active in looking out, but suddenly I may get interested to probe in and to know further. Which in a traditional format like website, if you would have put, then I should be actively looking out. I should know that your company is there, and I should be visiting it from time to time. So the ability to attract the passive candidates can be done only if one is using applications as you rightly suggested.
Right. And the need to invest in the best social hiring application, I think, is critical to truly take advantage of social media and social hiring. And I include employee referral as a part of social hiring, because that's really probably one of the most successful implementations of social hiring. And then, like any social media platform, one thing that is inherent in any social media platform or any wiki-based platform is it has to be of mutual benefit. Everybody is on that network, everybody is on that platform, because there is a sense of mutual give and take. So if I give you some lead, I expect something in return. May not be cash, but there needs to be some level of gratification. And a good social hiring application should allow you to give cash or non-cash gratification or points, etc., that could be mutually traded on later on. To say, okay, I referred you to some place, maybe you accrue a point, which later on you can, if you find a job in the other person's company, you should be able to reach out, and the person should be aware of the fact that at one point this person had helped you. Although cash, based on all focus groups we have done, clearly is a very, very compelling motivation. Let me, as I talk about the need to have a very good social hiring application that runs on the underlying social media platform, privacy and segregated environment is key. And let me give you an example. Here is what your typical Facebook page looks like, where you have your Facebook updates going on, but a good social hiring application, what it does is, it actually, within Facebook, all your job-related updates or career-related, lead-related update happens in a very different area in a very private way, so that there is no chance of people suddenly reading that you have been getting referred to a job or you have just referred somebody to a job. And that, I think, is highly important. And if you are not looking at an enterprise class application, you will run into a risk of applications that are built on top of Facebook, but they really do not give you the ability to provide the privacy. So here is an application that basically, it is a job-related application, but this is all very public information. And most candidates or most individuals would not like all this to be such a public information. So one part of social media is what I talked about was how do you take a Facebook page or a career page on Facebook and leverage the underlying ability to market and drive traffic to that Facebook page or a career page or a particular job. And that is what I call is full marketing. And that's a unique capability provided because of the social media platform, and the social hiring application takes advantage of it. But one of the things that a social hiring platform gives you that is almost impossible to do in the traditional way of job boards and email is where you are using your social network to reach out to candidates and for your candidates to propagate your job. So here is an example of a single recruiter or a single employee. If you look at an employee, this is again data from a set of companies, in an average year refer about 5 people. Or a recruiter typically, when they talk to a candidate, asks for, give me a couple of names of, if you are not interested, give me a couple of names of your friends. And that is how you basically leverage your social reach. Now, that without a social hiring platform is done over email or web or telephone and then scribbling it on a piece of paper. What a social hiring application allows you to do is you not only reach out to the 5, but those 5 now can reach out to their 5 friends, and not only these 5 people are referring back to your organization, but any of these folks can refer back to your organization, and that's what we call as extended referral. The second is this extended referral in any good social hiring platform that you saw an example of that earlier, where if they come to your Facebook page or they get a job shared with them, they can directly apply. So they don't have to go to a separate website, log in, create their own profile, which is one of the things most candidates don't enjoy, that if they have to go and spend about 20 minutes on a company's website to create a profile versus just uploading a resume. So not only your extended referral can refer more people, they can directly apply, and effectively what used to be a reach of 5, your candidate flow is now looking about 10 times larger. So here is an example of how an application not only, this is an application that is running on top of Facebook. For a particular job, it's not only giving your first level connections based on the relevance algorithm, but it's telling you here are not only your friends at, I'm just picking a name, at let's say Indian Oil, these are their friends' friends who are working at Indian Oil, for example. So that you can now say, okay, introduce me to the person. So this is in some way bringing the kind of a LinkedIn-like business capability onto Facebook, but then combining it with the reach, which is 3 to 4 times higher of Facebook. And so this is really empowering yourself as a recruiter, because as you build your own network, and we'll spend a lot more time in the workshop webinar, which is at the end of the month, in how do you go about building your network, which is a different kind of network than you traditionally would build on your Facebook on a social network side. And how do you then reach out from your first level of networks to the next level of network to increase your candidate flow? The second is empowering your employees. I think it's very compelling where your employees, when they see a job, today should be able to refer from their intranet, from SMS, email, or Facebook. And one of the discussions I was having with one of our clients is they were saying, well, Facebook, I'm not sure we want to allow our employees to have access to Facebook. The part that I think is inexorably happening is more and more people have smartphones. And as they keep getting more and more smartphones, whether they have access to Facebook on their desktop or not, they will all have access to Facebook on their smartphones. So in some way, the access they have to the social media is becoming ubiquitous. So this is about how social media, and especially a powerful social hiring application, fundamentally can give you a significant advantage in terms of how you attract candidates, both through pull marketing, where you can create a Facebook career page, put the right social hiring application that creates a career tab on it, and you can start targeting to drive people there. And then vice versa, use your employees and your recruiters, build your own network on the social hiring application, and then start driving candidate flow. Then there are other stages of a hiring process that I'll hand it over to Srini to talk more in detail.
Yeah, I'll just take a few minutes here. In talent landscaping, predominantly when we say it's all about trying to create a market intelligence, which are the organizations where you have people below compensation percentile, so that we know that where to attract from. Now, when we look at the social networking sites, like whether it is either LinkedIn or a Facebook, they serve different purposes. For example, LinkedIn would help us to know what kind of skills of people are available in which organization. Because the moment you type the organization name, you get to know what kind of people are available and what are their typically skills, which locations they are based on, those kind of identities. And that would be a good starting point for us to do a deep dive as to where our competitors are and what their skills look like. At the same time, when we look at Facebook, we also get to gauge the mood meter of an organization. So if I have a XYZ company on my target list and I believe the resources are good, and if one keeps monitoring Facebook, one may go back and see if the organization is going through a bad phase, the employees would go back and refer something to it on the Facebook. And that would be a good starting point for us to get aggressive into that organization. So the organization mood meters do get reflected in the Facebook, and which would invariably help the talent acquisition experts to draw up their own action plan as to what is the period when they would go and, be far more aggressive with that organization vis-a-vis others. If one sees the Facebook and the mood meter is high in update, the chances of hiring from that organization may not be that high because people seem to be happy there. So both LinkedIn and Facebook that way can help us to do a background work, would help us in creating our strategies as to from where we can pick up the resources. So rather than blindly shooting around, it would help us to go back and pinpoint and create our, we know where to put our tent pole and where to build around our strategy. The other thing was in terms of the talent scouting, as we call. Talent scouting is nothing but once we've shortlisted a candidate and we would like to do a deep dive on this candidate. This typically would happen in the middle to senior management level. We may not do so much at the junior level where probably we are recruiting in high numbers. But the moment we start getting into the middle management or senior management roles, or roles which are very critical, it may not be a very high profile role, but we know that this position is very critical to the business. Both again here, the LinkedIn and the Facebook can be used as tools to identify more about this person, which a candidate typically wouldn't talk about in his profile. So as resumes and profiles we get, they are quite tailor-made to appear what I want to see. But whereas LinkedIn and the Facebook can be good starting points to know more about this person, even before this person walks in for an interview. So for example, if one looks at LinkedIn, one can go back and see what kind of recommendations he's getting. Even though most of the recommendations would be nice ones, people would go back and share. What is important to know is who are the people recommending. So rather than we focusing on what recommendation this person has got, it would be good to go back and see who are the people who are recommending. Are they his peer group? Are they his seniors? Or are they his subordinates? To the fact, who are the people in his contact list? So are those the people whom we would like associated with? For example, if I'm a sales guy and you're hiring me, do I have important people hooked up on my contact list, which would enable the organization to get more business? Or do I have people who are not decision makers? And also, the people who are there, if some of those contact lists happen to be your good friends, it becomes an easy way to go out and look and do a rep check on them. On the other side, if one looks at Facebook, the Facebook would go back and give you the personal side of this person. So what are the comments that are being written on his wall? What are the statements that he uses in his personal life? Is the language, is the profile in line with your company ethos, or do you believe that is not so? So I remember working for organizations where a lady employee, if she is not called Miss and addressed by her name, it would not be treated very well. And I also have worked organizations where it was perfectly okay to call somebody a sweetheart. The question that we are asking here is, what is my personality profile and what is my organization profile? By giving deep dive, some of these things can easily be understood, and thereby you can help and create a good map.
So that's basically the set of steps in a typical hiring cycle, right from attracting candidates to inspiring them, engaging them, and obviously doing feedback and engaging with them, and how social media is giving access to the information, and how a social hiring application allows you to harness that in a meaningful fashion, especially for recruiters and people who are in charge of talent acquisition departments in an organization. So, Guru, I'll hand it back to you.
Thanks, Ranjan, and thanks, Srini. It was very compelling to hear both your thoughts and based on some statistics and data that you've shown us. We are running short on time, and I realize that. I would, however, request the audience to stay on. We have quite a few questions. I'm going to selectively pick a few and address them. So, Ranjan and Srini, I'll go with some questions. Ranjan, I have a question from Abhishek Bhaumik, and he says when his concern is when you're posting jobs using social network sites, aren't you exposing yourself not just to potential candidates but also to recruiters?
Can you repeat that, Guru? I'm sorry, I missed parts of it.
So the question here is simple. Basically, people they're concerned that if you're exposing yourself on social media with your jobs, you're also exposing those to other recruiters. As much as you're reaching potential candidates, you're also exposing those jobs and yourself to the recruiters. Isn't that an area of concern?
This is a question for an individual or
a recruiter
about a company, or I'm not sure who is exposing.
I guess this is for a recruiter and a company, in the context of a recruiter and a company.
So a recruiter is posting their job on the Facebook career page.
Correct.
And that job is getting exposed to other recruiters from other agencies or
Correct.
other companies?
Well, you can probably, let's just take it as a combination of recruiters, companies, and consultancies.
Okay, I would imagine if assuming I understand the question, that if you are posting your job on a Facebook page, and I'll take an example, let's say Genpact or a Summit, let's say Summit, we post a job, we want that to be exposed to other candidates. If somebody finds our Facebook page, they should be able to see the job, although most likely what we do is we will, once we upload the job using the social hiring application that we use, the system we will then go and do a targeted marketing to the profiles that meet that criteria and try to drive them to our page. I guess I'm missing what the risk is. Srini, perhaps.
No, I will also attempt, because I'm also a bit confused with the question, but still I'll try to attempt. Number one, I'm going back and saying the exposure used to happen in past also, because if I release the ad in a Times of India accent, then everybody gets to read it. That means the recruiter would also read it. So there is no element of secrecy there. Yes, probably what Abhishek is trying to do is, if there is a very critical position and which we don't want the competition to know. For example, I'm looking for the replacement of a CEO of my organization and I don't want the competition and clients to know because it is business sensitive, then definitely probably we would not go through the process of social hiring, and we may still go back to our old days of headhunting where we keep it hush-hush and we tell the headhunting agency to look at these 3 or 4 candidates to replace that position. So as far as my understanding goes, I think for normal positions, we traditionally also have been exposing ourselves to the recruiters because we release ads in public. And for the secretive or the business sensitive positions, probably we'll still not go to social hiring and stick with our headhunting.
Guru, I have a couple of questions here that show up on my panel. Do you want me to?
Sure.
Okay. So there is a question here from Harishankar Krishnamurthy, and this one is about Be Known, which is an application, which is a Facebook application that basically publishes the Monster job board onto a Facebook. And I guess Harishankar wanted me to elaborate a little bit on how it compares to a social hiring application. So applications like Binone, what they basically do is they publish Monster information onto a Facebook application, and they are trying to replicate your ability to create network using Facebook. So there are applications that focus purely on creating a social network. Just having a social network doesn't mean it can be effectively used as a social hiring application, because as I mentioned, you do need to make sure that there is an ability to post jobs and have complete privacy of communication. You should be able to, if you are using it, if you want to use social hiring as a reference tool, you should have the ability to incent people. So Binone is really publishing your Monster jobs as an application, as a Facebook application. It necessarily does not have the ability to manage communication in a private, secure fashion. It does not have the ability to have a robust back-end dashboard. It does not have really an ability to create referrals, put money, and those kind of things. So if you are a Monster user as a company, you can take that Binone application and put it on your corporate career Facebook page, and your Monster job will feed in there. And in some way, Binone is today where it is similar to where LinkedIn was, let's say, 6-7 years ago, where what you can do is you can create your social network, but it's really not a full-fledged social hiring application. I have another question here. It says, it's from Avishkar. It says, Ranjan, do you think it's difficult to target candidates on Facebook, given that it is not a professional platform? And that is a very good question. And I think, as Srini was mentioning, and based on the experience we have had, if you are looking to target candidates between the age of 18 to 35, and as long as you are using a quality social hiring application, when they connect with you through that application, they realize it's a very different business-like environment. You would be surprised how many people are actually very comfortable to transact on it. I think in the November webinar, we have a case study with actual facts, figures of how both employee referral and extended referral, a company literally upped their total number of hires by 50%. So, and we will get into more specifics of how do you create a business network using the Facebook as a connecting mechanism. And some of this is very age-oriented. I think there is a generation that is very familiar with Facebook, very comfortable with Facebook. And Srini, please go ahead and add to that. You have clearly done a lot more work in that behavioral area.
So Ranjan, you're absolutely right. And what traditionally was perceived Facebook as a tool for socialization, the lines are clearly blurring now. People are going back and saying, because of smartphones and others, when I'm 24/7 online of it, people are merging those lines of being professional and personal. And the people are very comfortable in that age group to be approached through that. As Ranjan rightly said, yes, people would still like to maintain the issues like privacy, and they wouldn't like the world to know that they may be looking at some of these things. But yes, at the same time, they're very comfortable into being approached through that.
And quickly just add one more thing. The ability to target. So one is, can you get people to join your network as a recruiter on Facebook? So, and I think as long as you have a good social hiring application, I think people will realize this is different. This is more business-like. The other is you still have the ability to target them on their Facebook page using some of the capabilities that I described, where they would be able to see that there is a job opening at this company, and if they are interested, they can click on it. And once they click on it, they get into a very business-like environment. And so it is very different when you are just posting on somebody's wall, I have a job. And that's where a good social hiring application is almost imperative to make this useful. And I have one last question here on my dashboard. It says, is my Parichaya a part of Facebook? Is it free? I'll leave that to Guru and the others, and perhaps they will be able to give you a sense of price, etc. So my Parichaya is basically a social hiring application that runs on top of Facebook. And I think we use that at Summit and for some of our clients, and I have taken some of the screenshots from there. And it's a product that GTM's product. So I'll leave it up to them to respond on the price and the other things, and perhaps offline it.
Yes. I'll be happy to take any questions on My Parichaya. You can always visit our website, myparichaya.in, for more information, and you can contact us through that. Ranjan, going back to the questions, I just probably have a question which probably is an extension to the last question. Samir Munshi wants to know, do you really need to be connected to people, to all the people on your network, on Facebook or whether it's LinkedIn? And if so, then, is it okay to approach them randomly? And how different is it from conventional headhunting methodology, where you probably pick up the phone and talk to quite a few people?
Okay. So, and I'm assuming this is from a recruiter's perspective. So as a recruiter, you have to clearly build your own network, very similar to perhaps what you did with LinkedIn when you started. And eventually, I think you will realize that it's really not getting the quantity that matters. Very soon, you will have certain people who end up being your referral point and your connection point within an organization, or perhaps within a certain kind of domain. So building a quality network, I think, is important, and we'll deep dive into that at this the workshop of how, as a recruiter, you create a meaningful network for yourself, and having the right software and application to do that makes it very meaningful and easy. And it goes back into both your quality of network, which directly links back to your quality of candidates you get, and then the kind of reputation you build in that network. So I think all those are very critical, and a good application is really important to harness all that in an effective fashion.
Just to add to what Ranjan said, traditionally, if you look at the organizations, they would always look into a particular industry for hiring people. And as recruiters, many of us build networks in those industries. As the economies are shrinking and the globe is shrinking, today we find a cross-fertilization of professionals moving in. So traditionally, if I was in automobile industry and I would look for people from automobile industry, today I'll go back and say any engineering industry is good enough. So it's becoming equally challenging for recruiters to go back and build networks across industries. It's not that easy. And what Ranjan has been trying to, I think, emphasize is the tools, social hiring applications would help build these networks much faster. So when I go in a LinkedIn or a Facebook, it's easy to make up friends and create my network as recruiter much faster across industries and know what is happening there, rather than trying to go through the traditional way where probably I would be a member of the, one of the councils in the city and try to visit there and exchange cards and build a network.
One last question before we log off, and Ranjan and Srini, this is a question by Dimple Pandey. I'm going to rephrase a bit of that question. She wants to know if it's just okay to, if it's required to have a company's Facebook presence in terms of a page, or do they just use links and post it on their profile, or some pages relative to job boards or things like that on Facebook?
Well, I again, it's a question of, if I think. Let me answer that in a couple of points. First of all, I think people expect a certain, your presence on Facebook and the quality on presence on Facebook, I think is an important element of your own brand. And I think Srini has a great example which I would like him to share. But and before he does that, I pass it to him. The second point I was going to mention is that having a career tab on your on a Facebook page or a corporate Facebook page, or the beauty of Facebook is you can create a Facebook page that is purely a career page for your company, gives you tremendous ability in a very, very cost-effective fashion to slice and dice those 30 million people in prime hiring age and reach out to them through what I call pull marketing, where you can advertise your positions while they are already on Facebook. The system will pop it for them to say perhaps you're interested. Now, once they click on it, you do need some application that gives them a comfort that they are not going to have a chat with you on their wall. And to that extent, having a career page on Facebook or a corporate page with a career tab, the one I shared with you earlier, I think goes a long way in creating quality candidate flow. And then there is an associated issue of if you're not on Facebook, what is its brand implications? And I'll let Srini address that.
Yeah. We did work for one of the big four consulting firms in India, and they are a brand which is so respected that anybody would jump. And they got a shock of their life when they went to St. Mary's and St. Stephen's in Delhi. And when the undergraduate students came back and said, we wouldn't like to join with you because you aren't so hip and happening on Facebook. So when the recruitment team asked why is it so important for them, then these 18, 19 years old girls who were part of the undergraduate program and who were supposed to join them, said, when I go back and tell my friends that I work for you and they log into the Facebook and they don't see a nice profile, it becomes very hard for me to justify why am I working with you. So in that age group today, one goes back and says, for good or for bad, their brand awareness and the brand identity for them is very, very important. And they're very particular about it. So Facebook becomes kind of a facelift of your organization, and one cannot shy away from that. And one has to ensure, as Ranjan has been rightly pointing out, today people would probably look at your Facebook page more often than your website. The other thing that we've realized during our studies is people somehow believe that websites are a farce and they are there to attract the clients. So whatever we tell may not be truth. But somewhere they have an inherent belief that what you say on Facebook may be truth because it is kind of informal medium. So the messages that are passed through Facebook, people take it more seriously than on website, because on website people will believe and people have this fundamental bias saying whatever you put on website, you're only trying to put the good picture and you're trying to put the right foot forward. But with Facebook, they somewhere have this feeling saying, this is what they say, maybe what it is. So that's another distinction that is slowly emerging up.
Great. Thanks for that, Srini. I think we will stop at this. People can, anybody interested to write, ask any further questions can always write back to me at guru@stargtm.com. I have mentioned that in the chat box. Thanks, Ranjan and Srini, for your valuable time and for extending this webinar a little further. I'm sure you have a lot of other engagements, but thanks for sparing that time for all of us. And thanks for the audience. Have a great day.
Thank you, Guru. Thank you, Srini.
Thank you, Ranjan. Thank you, Guru. Thank you, everybody.